Forced public school vaccination for a 14-year-old has parents up in arms. Now that the kid was forced to take the jab, it doesn't really matter how much up in arms the parents get, does it? Get your kids out now. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Duke, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. We are the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today's show is sponsored by Mike Lindell and our friends at MyPillow. MyPillow is always offering something really great that will make you sleep really, really well. And this week, they want you sleeping on the best sheets around. That's right, they're famous. Giza sheets are now available for 50% off. 50% off. Stunning. All you have to do is use the code Dr. Duke, D-R-D-U-K-E. Visit mypillow.com and save up to 66% on all other products at this wonderful store. Again, use the code D-R-D-U-K-E. Today we start in North Carolina, where a once proud red state is lapsing quickly into the deep blue mire. Parents are up in arms when a 14-year-old gets a shot in the arm, a COVID jab, by the school district without ever getting permission from the students or parents, even after the governor passed a mandate that children in that age group must have consent of parent to get the jab. So, way to go, North Carolina public schools.
So basically, the long and short of it, according to Facebook, is a mom learned that her 14-year-old son was at school. He was going for athletic practice, but that he got not only tested, because he was supposed to get tested for COVID, he got jabbed with the vaccine. And so this is happening with Guilford County schools. And this type of stuff, I guess, has been happening in the whole school system for the whole pandemic. So it's not just this one incident. This is like a long time coming, I guess, in the Guilford County schools. Now, according to the story, again, by mom, her 14-year-old son, he was taken to one of their sites because, according to Guilford County schools, in that area, the schools are a good location. Everyone knows where they are. Sure, that's why it's happening. But
doesn't everybody in their own community know where the schools are?
Yes, so that's why they're saying they're making it. Yes. Well, her son plays football, and so I guess multiple players had actually tested positive for the COVID-19. And so in order for any child to return to playing, you either have to get a COVID-19 test or a negative result. And her kid was taken to a testing site at Northwest Guilford High School, which is not even the high school that the child is attending. And then he was made to sign a consent form. A 14-year-old boy who's there for football practice, do you think he read whatever it was on that piece of paper?
That 14-year-old boy
No.
would have taken 18,000 shots of estrogen and grown girl breasts before he would not have allowed himself to play. He'd have signed anything.
Yes, and according to what mom said, he said before he knew it, he had a needle in his arm. According to the clinic supervisor on the scene that called me back after I called the school irate, he does not need a parent's permission for this vaccine. What's interesting, coincidental, is on the very same day that the student, the 14-year-old, got the vaccination, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper actually signed into law a bill that required parental consent for the 12 to 17-year-olds to get the vaccine. The very same day. So if it's a bill and then it became a law, that means the bill had to go through a couple stages, which means they would know this was coming down the pipeline, if you will. And so instead of waiting to see what happened, to make sure it was actually signed into law, they're like, no, quick, get the jab in his arm now, because before it's too late.
And if we're going down this road, what's to stop any public school from saying, hey, a football player, a softball player, a wrestler, a soccer player has COVID? Now, of course, we're not allowed to tell you who for all sorts of federal reasons, but because of that, we need all of you to come down and get your shots. Come on down. Right? I mean, the level of abuse that's possible here, well, you're seeing it here. The fact that this kid comes down for no other reason and some COVID on the team, and the answer is a vaccination without parents knowing. The Orwellian power of the state grows daily now. And one of the really canary in the coal mine places where you see it is in education. If you watch what's happening in education, it's why we're here. If you see what's happening in education across the country, you see what's coming to the country generally, and it's not a pretty picture.
Yeah, and to go a step further with what's happening with this story, just after the weekend, then Pfizer was approved to become the first COVID-19 vaccine to get full approval for use for anyone 16 years of age or older, because they've been working on this whole emergency use category. But it's still 16 or over, not 12 to 15, which is still emergency use. Yeah, and this kid is 14.
And you're a mom, and you hear those phrases. Drug companies are working overtime feverishly to produce these hasty drugs, right, that took a long time to get approved, that have no long-term studies, and they tell you it's okay for 16-year-olds, but not 15-year-olds. Really? Are you so sure? What allows you that level of precision that you can say somebody 15 and a half years old shouldn't have this, but a 16-year-old should? None of this has anything to do with science.
And as this mom states, and I think a lot of moms and dads out there can relate to this exact sentiment, we are not an anti-vax family, but I refuse for an experimental vaccine to be given to anyone in my family without knowing long-term side effects. How is a 14-year-old able to make medical decisions for themselves?
Two separate questions, both fantastic. Neither will get an answer.
Correct.
Right? Why are we punishing people? Why are we ostracizing people? Why are we stigmatizing people who logically don't want to take vaccines that have only been on the market for a few months, that there are no long-term studies about, that serious people have serious reservations about, and there have been underreported cases, very underreported cases, of serious damage being done to more people than you would imagine if you listen to the media all across the world. So with all those factors, right, the fact that, and then that you may have had the virus and don't need it anymore, or maybe you've built your own antibodies, there's 101 reasons why this might be, for some people, a no-go. And yet, the authoritarian power of the state, whether we're talking about global warming or public health or any of the other myriad ways they're using now to sort of crack down on individual liberties, this is a bad place to be.
And of course, the response from the school, Jansen Silvers, the media relations specialist for Guilford County Schools, said that the school system could not comment on a medical issue pertaining to a particular student and a medical provider.
But they could stick a needle in the kid's arm.
There we go. However, he did say that the school system does work with various providers by allowing the use of some school sites for testing and vaccinations.
Yeah, I remember Common Core. Remember we talked about Common Core, and I kept saying Arnie Duncan, the Barack Obama Secretary of Education, kept boasting that we need new school construction. And on that new school construction, we wanted clinics, we wanted healthcare, we wanted vaccines, right? We were told in 2009 by Arnie Duncan that the schools in this country, the public schools, were going to become clinics where, regardless of what mom and dad want, things that doctors would never do in hospital settings, we will do on middle school and high school campuses now.
Before we move on, just a quick reminder that the best way to access our content is to download our Freedom Project Media app. Simply search Freedom Project in your app store and make sure you allow for notifications once you've downloaded. Also, if you like listening to the audio podcast, we are available on Apple, Google, SoundCloud, and everywhere else. Now, I'm glad to hear that unvaccinated people should die. Jason Rance for KTTH in Washington State. Jason Rance has done a lot of good research and reporting on what happens in our school systems. But Jason says, basically a teacher from Y East Middle School in Vancouver wrote on Facebook that she is ready for people who are unvaccinated to just let them die. Just let them die. And we don't know who the teacher is because apparently they don't identify teachers when they are not fired or charged for any crime yet. So according to the post from this teacher, I am ready to say let them die. You made a choice to not get your shot for any reason other than a doctor's note. You should not be allowed the health care. You are like the brats in class that ruin it for everyone. Would you like to comment just on that statement alone?
My question is this. Let's say the worst does happen, and it's perfectly logical to think that it might. These rushed, incomplete, no long-term study vaccines. What happens if in 3 and 5 years people are dying in mass numbers? Do we at that point have the right to say, all you who took the vaccine and all you who forced that vaccine on others, you deserve to die? Would you be okay with that, ma'am? You probably wouldn't, because then you'd be screaming about how, what? You live in Washington where Democrat governors are doing goofy things all the time, like, getting rid of all high school tests and standards so minorities can pass without even having to know anything. You live in Washington State, for God's sake, woman. What'll happen, though, if that happens? Because, it's as likely that happens as it is likely that nothing. Statistics here, kids. Do you think what's more likely? That these vaccines will have no long-term consequences? Or they will at least have some, right? And some of them may be actually quite severe. You have no idea if 5 years, you're not going to see on every TV screen, after every commercial, after every show, let the law firm of so-and-so, if you took the vaccine of Pfizer or Moderna, right, 4 or 5 years ago, class action lawsuits up the wazoo. And wishing death, that's a dangerous trick because it could come back on you real quick.
Well, you can replace her statement with, I'm ready to say let them die. You made a choice to not eat your broccoli.
Right.
You made a choice to guzzle all that soda. You made a choice to just live an unhealthy lifestyle. So you should not be allowed health care. If we do that, then she's like, well, how dare you? How dare you? But the second half of her...
You chose to be homeless.
You
chose to be a refugee at the border. You chose the religion of Islam. Do you really want to go down that road?
The second half of her statement saying that you're like the brats in class that ruin it for everyone just shows that everyone gets treated the same all the time. So that's what she likes. You can tell. In the comments section of her personal page, though, she couldn't, I guess, live and let live.
She couldn't deal.
Because she had to let die. But she continued on with her comments, saying that if we're lucky, we can cut out 30% of the population that votes the wrong way.
Now you're a eugenicist. Now, without even knowing it, you've entered the territory of Margaret Sanger and Adolf Hitler.
And then,
congratulations.
And then she continued when a friend of hers apparently responded that there would be less people using up all the resources. And she says, let the Hunger Games begin.
See, yeah.
Hey,
isn't that cute?
Is she in District 1 is my question, because she's not going to be in any of the other districts because they would actually have to do work. So parents complained about this, and then the teacher, of course, deleted her account, and Human Resources began a little investigation. Well, that investigation didn't take too long because there's all the evidence right there for you to read. But in an email statement, Evergreen Public Schools said that they take the health and safety of our students very seriously. The district is aware of our employees one of our employees posted a message regarding COVID vaccination statuses on her personal Facebook page or account while on summer break. It is being handled by our Human Resources Department in accordance with district policies and procedures, and as it is a personnel matter, we cannot provide you any more specific information.
Evergreen Schools. I wonder if this is the same Evergreen. Where that biology professor was hounded off campus as a liberal for not abandoning campus to Black Lives Matter. That would make a lot of sense if it was the same community.
Well, now you're talking about making sense of things, which doesn't happen much. Yes. Now, according to the district policy, it states that they expect all staff to participate in maintaining a clear expectation of civil conduct. Wish death upon people. Civil conduct.
Laugh about it, Hunger Games,
I don't know.
I'm not sure civil is in the definition here.
So the district does not punish or ban conversations on controversial issues, just so everyone knows. So she can it's controversial, okay? According to their policy, which the staff agrees to, it directly prohibits expression that would, quote, materially disrupt the educational process.
Right.
But they made sure to say on summer break, while she was on summer break. So we'll see what actually
I guarantee you
happens.
If she had wandered into the wrong racial metaphor or culturally appropriated something, or heaven forbid, a video surfaced where 20 years ago she used the N-word, pretty sure this would have been a lot, that free speech spiel would not have been offered after they had gotten rid of her.
Washington State's one of the worst.
Yep.
So we're going to stay in Washington State for an even creepier story where student athletes have to wear ankle bracelets as if they're some sort of criminal being monitored because of COVID. Makes perfect sense, I'm sure. Eatonville School District announced the school got grant funding. Oh, well, we got all this money. We got to use it for something. Why not get ankle bracelets? It allows administrators to track the players and their staff by mandating that they wear these, what they're calling proximity detectors. There it is, a proximity detector that makes sure, this side faces out. Can the children read that is the question. Do they know how to read that this side faces out? We don't know. But these student athletes have to wear this regardless of their vaccination status. So you decided, okay, I'm taking the vaccine. Also, you still must wear this monitor.
How many times have you heard, Mom and Dad, in the last month, regardless of the vaccine? That seems to be the buzzword of the day, the phrase. And so with everything, I was in I was flying, I flew out of the state, went to different stores shopping, everything, regardless of the vaccine, you must. What does that tell you about people of conscience who are susceptible of the vaccine? If you've got to say that, if you've got to have a policy that says, regardless of whether you're vaccinated or not, you still have to act as if you weren't, then maybe all that worry about the vaccines is 100% legitimate.
It's like, what's the point? What's the jab? Now, Gary Neal, who is Eatonville's school district superintendent, said if a student or coach tests positive, we will have immediate information regarding athletes and coaches' contact so we can more tightly determine who might need to quarantine. I just imagine him or someone in the school district staring at a computer screen, waiting for something, beep, beep, beep,
Right,
beep, beep.
that's right.
And then, we got him! And they'll go out and get him.
And
Now-
it's all, and notice without any irony or hint of the danger, so we can immediately usher them into a quarantine.
More tightly determined.
Right? Yeah.
Tightly
Less
determined.
wiggle room. Use what authority we've appropriated, right?
Yep.
To go find somebody, hunt them down, and throw them in in the hole, right?
Put them in the hole.
Put them in the hole.
Might as well put them in the hole. The monitors are required for moderate and high contact indoor sports, contain radio-based sensors that track distance between people wearing them. But the officials at the district insist that they aren't being traced while they're off the field, which doesn't make sense because it's for indoor sports, so there's no field indoor.
And if
like
you ask for the
indoor
same,
soccer,
if you
I guess.
ask for the same rule for people who are on parole for prison, the ACLU would be all over you. If you said, "Oh, but these guys are on parole. These guys are still potentially dangerous criminals. Maybe the little ankle bracelet is not enough. So we can more tightly shut them down. What if we gave them these proximity meters? Pretty sure, really damn sure, the ACLU would be all over that.
So one parent, Jason Ostendorf, said his son is playing football, which isn't that outside, but they said indoor. We'll see. I was notified if I didn't sign it, they couldn't play. I signed it reluctantly. It's either that or he doesn't play. Above all, they're putting tracking devices on my kid. So that's the decision these parents with their children are going to have to make now.
Dad,
I know
explain
you're
to
going to
me
go
the
off on
logic,
this.
Dad. So something that is unconstitutional, something that is an undercutting of human rights and legal responsibilities, something that you yourself recognize, Dad, as a bridge too far, but Johnny wants to play football.
And he said he's reluctantly going to get his kids.
But he still did it.
Yes.
So on top of all that, you were still over and above it reluctant, but you did it because Johnny wants to play football.
Well, just so everyone's aware, the school district is delaying the implementation of this mandate because they're gathering additional feedback from the parents, which translates to they got yelled at so bad that they're going to wiggle and give some false hope that it won't be mandated, and then they'll mandate it later.
That's what they got the grant for, right? They got the grant to use this material, these biometric little measuring devices, so they're going to use them. You know they're going to use them. All right, here we are with another installment, a week's worth of installments of Instant Classics. And you guys have been really good. You've been very vocal about how much you love this segment, and we love doing it. It is nice to put all this garbage away and just look at truth and beauty. And that's what art at its best is. It is truth and beauty. And this week, it is Marc Chagall week on the Dr. Duke Show. One of the great 20th century painters, and just a guy who understood color like very few understand color. In some ways, you could say that he has the same relationship to color in the 20th century that Titian had in the Renaissance. So that's saying a lot. And Chagall, of course, I know many of you have seen his paintings, but you may not be familiar with him. So let's take a look at our picture for today. It's called I and the Village. And it's an interesting painting. And I want to first give you some information about Chagall. Chagall was born Moishe or Moses Chagall in 1887. He was a Russian-French artist of Belarusian Jewish origin. So it's good to know that Stalin didn't kill all the Russian Jews off. And he did, of course, for a while. He was an expatriate, too, during the worst of the Soviet occupation. He was an early modernist painter. He was associated with several major artistic styles and created works in a wide range of artistic formats, including paintings, drawings, book illustrations, stained glass. Some of his stained glass is as beautiful as anything that he did do. Stage sets, ceramics, tapestries, and so forth. Chagall has been called the quintessential Jewish artist of the 20th century. He was respected as the world's preeminent Jewish artist by others. And Picasso, they figure no less than Pablo Picasso once said of him in the 1950s, when Matisse dies, the great impressionist, Chagall will be the only painter left alive who understands what color really is. This painting, this really very interesting painting here, was painted the year after Chagall left the Eastern Europe for Paris. I and the Village evokes his memories of his native Hasidic community outside of his hometown. In this village, peasants and animals live side by side in a mutual dependence, here in the painting signified by the line from peasant to cow connecting their eyes. The peasant's flowering sprig, symbolically a tree of life, is the reward of their partnership and a clear, hankering, hearkening back to the Old Testament. For Hasidic people, animals were also humanity's link to the universe, and the painting's large circular form suggests the orbiting sun and the moon in eclipse at the lower left and the earth. The geometries of this painting are stunning, the mathematics behind it. They are inspired by the broken planes of Cubism. No wonder Picasso paid attention. But Chagall is a personalized version of that vision. As a boy, he had loved geometry, lines and angles, triangles and squares. He would later recall, carried me far away to enchanting horizons. Conversely, in Paris, he used a disjunctive geometric structure to carry him back home. Where Cubism was mainly an art of urban avant-garde society, I and the Village is nostalgic and magical and personal. It's a rural fairy tale. Objects jumbled together, scale shifts abruptly, and a woman in two houses at the painting's top stand upside down. For Cubists, Chagall said, quote, a painting was a surface covered with forms in a certain order. For me, however, he said, painting is a surface covered with representations of things in which logic and illustration and perspective, have no real importance.
All right, before we go, let's show some love to our Patriot Club members. And today, we're giving a shout out to Noelle from Crofton, Maryland. Noelle, thank you for supporting us.
And that's going to be our show for this day. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and until next time, stay educated, my friends.